Alright, Levi, we're back, and we're going to work on perfecting and expanding that awesome G lick we talked about last week even further. Okay, so we've been working on this far up to now. Started out with that, just a simple G lick, G run. And then last time we went over, and we talked about the importance of picking, picking that right. It's a downstroke. Quick up down, open D, second fret, pull off, and then the G. And I'm pretty sure we mentioned the, let's see, that little rest stroke. When you hit that D, and the picking hand, you rest on that G string. Okay, so I'm pretty sure we went over that. So what I want to do is even expand that even further. And we also mentioned doing that in the key of D. It's the same movement. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're also going to incorporate the strumming with this so that we can keep everything in time and nothing really jumps on us and catches us by surprise. So what I want to do is, we've got this standard rhythm here. Last week we talked about I'll Fly Away. Probably starting next week on our in-person lesson, we'll be actually going over, maybe working on Wildwood Flower like you talked about, and using some of these foundational techniques that we've been working on to make it sound even better, So we'll probably get into some, maybe some little solo stuff based on how you're doing on Wildwood Flower. So the main lick that we used was, okay, so let me show you the G lick that I typically use all the time, all right? It sounds like this. Now all that is adds one extra note to this. It's just an up and A. The picking kind of changes and my fingers kind of change because once again, I don't want you to have to think that you have to maintain the chord shape to get a good lead sound and to be able to pick things. A lot of people get hung up on that. They think they have to stay on this chord, and for this little lick, it really worked out good because we could keep our fingers down here for that G. But things with like the D, you have to completely release the chord shape and then come back down to it. So we want to keep in mind that we don't want to just stay anchored to a chord shape. We want to have that ultimate freedom of being able to move back and forth. So all I did was, and that is, the picking here is probably going to take some time to get used to. That's fine. This is the first one. It's a simple down, up, down, down. For this one, we're going to have a down for the initial note and then two upstrokes. And usually instead of sliding, you can slide if you want to, but usually I'll just do these two fingers here, first and the second. And then that's an upstroke, that's a down, and then this is an upstroke, these hammer-ons. And then the next string is a upstroke, followed by that. This is where this comes in. So this movement is what we've been used to. So as soon as we get to that D, it's going to be that quick up, down, and then another down. So we're going to go down, hammer on, first to second up, and then a quick. Okay, so I mean, if you can just go the down, up, the next thing is just an up, down, down. Okay, and the reason we do two upstrokes, this is really important when it comes to picking, is that you want, usually for timing reasons, usually Bluegrass deals with a lot of eighth notes, the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it's really kind of basic rhythm. But the way the picking falls is that usually, like if you did just, that would be all up, alternate picking, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Well, you get to a point to where you're able to leave out certain notes or do other things to the notes, and your picking kind of has to compensate for that. So for example, if I play that G lick all at once with picking, it's it sounds more Lester Flatty, more traditional style bluegrass, because that was all about picking and getting that pick sound. But to me, it sounds really stale and stiff. And I like that flow of the hammer-ons and the pull-offs and things like that. So what happens is, if our down and up strokes are on every note, then when we do a hammer-on, then this right here, this little hammer-on that we make without a pick, counts as one of those strokes. So we eliminate that and then go to the next stroke after that to keep the timing from getting, out of sync. So if the first three notes were like this, then the last note will be a downstroke, and we'd have to come up anyway on that D string. Down, up, down, up. Well, since we're eliminating the downstroke on this second fret and we're hammering on, that eliminates that downstroke. So now that leaves us with two upstrokes. So here's the down, or down, up, down, up. And if we eliminate that and put that hammer on, we go down, up, imaginary down, up. So that causes us to have two upstrokes in a row there. Whereas, notice, probably the easiest way to phrase this is the upstroke is on the D string. Okay, so if I did it with all the picking, then that would lead me to go to the upstroke on the D string, down, up, down, up. But since I'm eliminating a note, then I've still got to maintain that so that the rest of my rhythm is not completely, crash and burn, thrown off. So that if that D string is always an up, whether I'm alternate picking or not in this particular lick, then it's still going to fall on an upstroke whether I alternate pick or not. That hammer-on is not going to change anything. And once again, we didn't discuss this earlier, but we have two downstrokes here instead of a down-up. Now notice this is pull-off, so we're creating another note out of thin air. Right there, that open D. And if I did this alternate picking, this would look like this. So we'd have up, down, up, down. Well, that up is on that open D there the second time around. Up, down, up. But since I'm doing that pull off, I'll make the motion with this hand, but I'll actually pull off. See, it counts as that upstroke. So naturally I do the downstroke for the last one. Plus the very last note of any lick is going to sound the best because it's got that is as a downstroke. You want it to be a downstroke because it has that attack. So those hammer-ons and pull-offs and even slides, whenever you start adding things to the mix that take away the straight, steady, alternate picking, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, then, and this only comes with practice, this only comes with experience. It's not like you're going to have to count, okay, which one do I eliminate, which one do I do this, which one do I do that. It comes with experience and playing a lot of tunes and kind of, getting in the groove and, experimenting with your own interpretations of different songs. And you'll develop a feel for it. Don't get panicky and think that, I'll never get this down. It takes a little while, but you got to get your right hand, willing to do it. And so that's the basic G lick that I like to use, the G run that I like to use for just about everything. Now, if we did this in context, here's where the count would come. It may take me a couple times here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. Now, if I did that with the hammer-ons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. I'm gonna try it again. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. Okay, so if I even broke that down further into like 16th notes, which is 1 E and a, 2 E and a, that's going to have to be slower. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, E and a, 1, and wait a minute. 3. don't know if I can break it down any further than that. It's confusing me as it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and a 4 and a 1. That's it. 1, 2, 3, and a 4 and a 1. 2, 3, and a 4 and a 1. 2, 3, and a 4 and a 1. 2, 3. If we did this on our fly away, some glad morning when this life is over, fly away. So the more you add onto these licks, the less time that it takes to get there. I mean, you have to start earlier. So after you sing the word away, fly away. So after away, you start immediately on that downstroke on that A string. To a home on God's celestial shore, I'll fly away. The same thing on the second away, and on the chorus or the verse, you'll develop a feel for that, like I said. Okay, so I think we've already talked about, the shifting back and forth between chords. What I was going to do next is do that in the version of E. Okay, so if the first E, I don't know if I said E or D, I mean D. If the first D lick is exactly the same, then it's going to be the same movement as well. It's just on a different set of strings. So we're going to go down on the open E. Okay, so it's the same motion. So if you can do it with a G, then you can definitely do it with a D. The only difference is you're starting from a string, lower than what you started with. So we got a down, up, down, and a down. Okay. Some glad morning when this life is over, I'll fly away. Once again, it's going to be the same timing. The cool thing with D, it's really fun to play in D because you got that low, that really low bass in there. Okay, so obviously we're not. We need to slow it down because the speed this is, it needs to be slow. It's the same, the same strum we've been working on, the basic bass down, up, down, up, with a pause in between. Now I don't know if you noticed this or not, but whenever we're strumming, we got a wider hand going on. When I come in to do that lick, I have to have more control. So with me, I tend to use the bottom two fingers to kind of anchor on to that low E or that high E string, because it gives me this control of staying within this one little area. I can't go much farther than that unless I really exaggerate my movements, which I'm not going to do. This right here keeps me within the maximum area of the strings that I need to be in. And when I'm doing these picking things, I'm not really worried about if it's going to kill that low E string if something's ringing out. Because, for one thing, when I'm doing this lick, it's going to be right after a bass note, so I'm not playing anything on the high E strings anyway. And notice the strings are going to die anyway. You let go. You're really paying attention to that bass note ringing out, not the fact that the high E strings have now killed. They've deadened. So, and then immediately after that, you're going to be hearing. Your ear just basically naturally and selectively hears what sounds the best to your ears. You're not even going to be able to tell, and most people won't be able to tell, whether these strings have just died because you've muted them. so that you could have this ability, you know, to have more control and more precision in your playing. So don't worry a bit about that. Once again, though, definitely play this in time. Play this with, you know, the different songs. I'll Fly Away is just one I keep thinking of. You could try Unclouded Day or Will the Circle Be Unbroken. Back to G, we go I was standing by my window. Gonna slow down on a cold and cloudy day. Once again, it comes right after that last word, that last syllable, that phrase. Instead, in I'll Fly Away, it was with away. With this, it was on a cold and cloudy day. When I saw that first come rolling for to carry my mother away. And that's another one that I use every now and then, just kind of a long. It's not. It is distinctly different than this one. This is more, you know, right on the timing. Da, da, da. This other one's da ba da 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 ba ba da 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 da. And for that, I do use just one finger so I can have that nice slide going on. Okay, so, and you can rewind that if you need to practice that. But I would definitely start practicing this right here, because you want to get away from that comfort zone of I have to keep my chord shape. Okay, you want to definitely get away from that. So definitely come up here and use these two fingers. And usually I've just got these all kind of crumped together. I don't know why. It's just the way my fingers kind of naturally do this. And then after that open G strings rings, you can come back to this. And the cool thing is too. Now don't forget, you don't have to be just in the key of G or D or C or whatever to get these cool sounds. Sometimes if you have a song that's going to land on the D chord, like if it's in G, it'll land on the D chord, and it'll stay there a few beats or so. Well, when you have that time and it's not like carry my mother away, I mean, right like that, I mean, it's quick D back to G. But if you have something that lasts for a while on that D, then, let's see, I'm trying to think of a song that would allow you to do that. How about Amazing Grace? I mean, you can do that on there. Amazing Grace. There's that F chord we talked about. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. There you go. So the D is held out longer, and you're able to go to that, you know, that cool little riff there. And also Amazing Grace, you know, you can do the G lick too. How sweet, let's see, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved. And so if somebody's singing, it's hard to do that and sing at the same time. But if somebody's singing, you can just do it. And this will be quicker. It won't be one of those, it'll be another one. It's all in the timing. You just kind of got to get a feel for what timing is best, and it'll come naturally to you after a while. We can do the same thing, you know. Let's just go ahead and work on some C things, because C is a little different. Okay, so C is, once again, we have to kind of get over the fact that we don't want to have our chords shapes anchored to this to the guitar to play these, you know, fancy licks and everything. Okay, so now for that one, I don't even know if we went over C or not. I don't think we have. So it might be good to start gradually building up to that point, like we did with the G and the D. So we can do this. Sit there for a while and do that. And then what happens here is it's not as easy to come back, you know, and catch that right there. Like we did with the G. It's not as easy to do that. So what we have to really do is we have to lift our first finger That C, it comes off that C note on the B string, 1st fret, comes up when you're getting ready to do that note. And then it has to come down. Now notice this finger completely lifts off. I'm not worried about the shape anymore. I'm thinking of a C, run, but I'm not worried about keeping every finger down. So if the finger comes up, it stays, around the area that I need it to be on the 3rd fret, around this general area. And then this 1st finger comes back down. And then everything else is placed on the fretboard back in C shape after I hit my last note. You can also do this just to lift that. Now this will allow you to keep the shape of the C because the notes are right here, but you're fretting in just one step away. So you can do this, which is a hammer-on to the 2nd fret of the D string with a downstroke. So it's a downstroke, up, down, and then down on that B string there. But the thing about that is, and it's even doing it to me, is when I hit that D string, it's very lightly touching the back of this finger right here. It's wanting to mute, so I have to almost cause my hand to jut out a little bit more, just so that I can get a more majory sound. Which in particular, I like the bluesy sound better of the the 1st fret. Sounds more bluegrassy, sounds like it's got more attitude. But you can, either way, whatever you want to do. Might be good to practice both. I mean, this is a good note anyway. Just those 2 little strings there on the 2nd fret, the D and the G, the open and the fretted. And you can do pull-offs, hammer-ons. Okay, so I mean, those are cool, two cool notes you can work with. Once again, if we expanded that even further to the complete lick that I showed you earlier with G and with D, it would look like this for C. So we'd have to have that, right? So we couldn't just go. To leave the out. So if you want that sound, it involves a 1st fret. And once again, the picking is the same. We started with G on the B string. Not the B, the A string. With D, we start on the E string. And with C, we're going to start on the D string. Alright, so once I hit this last note, everything else can fall right back in place in that C. Once again, it falls in the same timing, if we was doing I'll Fly Away. Some glad morning when this life is old, I'll fly away. So it falls in the same spot right after away. The other cool thing that I do with this is I'll actually add that up down on the end. Instead of pull off, I'll do just for more attitude. So I've got one hammer on here. Let me go ahead and answer the phone. Alright, let's get back to what I was saying before. I was interrupted on the phone. I'll add that extra upstroke there instead of pull off. It's for more attitude. So I've got one hammer on, and just for more attitude and more, just more punch to the song. And it's not a very, you got to keep this in mind too. Not only do you need to keep in mind that you don't want to keep anchoring to the chord shape and using that as a crutch, You also want to keep in mind that it doesn't take a lot of movement. Like what I said was earlier about anchoring onto these strings here. I don't need a lot of movement to get these nice loud sounds. I'm probably sitting about 4 feet away, 3-4 feet away from the microphone, but you can hear this. I mean, it's loud enough. And I'm not making huge movements. So get used to playing these pick strokes without, and get control of this right hand so that it's not flopping all over the place trying to hit these notes. Once again, if you need to slow any of this down, it will be on YouTube. So YouTube sometimes has in the bottom right corner the little gear shift, and you can, or the little cog, the wheel, and you can adjust the speed that way, slower or faster. So that should be able to help. Now, that was basically the last thing I wanted to show you today, was using the C version of all these. And you'll want to do the same thing, practice it in time. And just to get used to the C, you might want to start with just the basic first. Then move on to the, there you go. Now that's one thing that happens. If you don't hit that note, if you don't land on that first fret of that B string, it's going to sound weird, unless you mean for it to sound like that. So you definitely want to get there in time. So once again, one thing you can do, if you can get used to this, is leave this finger, the ring finger, down and let that note sustain while you hit this. And that way it kind of, all those notes kind of run together, and at the very last note, you've got this one matching that note here. You can hear how it does. Now, if you're doing really fast, you don't want to fool that, because there's going to be notes flying by too fast for you to even listen for beautiful things like that, you know, note sustaining. That was basically what I wanted to go over, is extending that a little further and adding the C shape to all this stuff. And one last thing I will give you as a bonus, if you want to try to do this, it's always good to do these as an repeatable in a cycle, kind of like in a cycling exercise. In other words, instead of just going, instead of doing that, what's really cool is you can just loop it. And what that is after you hit that downstroke, that last downstroke, come up on that pull off again, and then so one cycle will look like this, and then what you would do is you continue to do that over and over again. Now, a lot of times when I'm doing this, I'll actually end the note. Usually you want to end on a downstroke if it's the end of a phrase, but if you're continuing the phrase like this, then that changes a little bit, because you're having to come back up. So instead of going down when I need to come back up, I'll make that an upstroke, because I'm coming back up to that D string to go like that. And that would leave you to have two downstrokes after that D pull off. Downstroke, another downstroke. Last one, you can do the upstroke or the downstroke for the end of the phrase. Alright, so that's this week's lesson. Sorry I was getting a little bit late to you. I had some car issues today that had to be taken care of, just like at last spur of the moment. So, appreciate you, Levi. I will see you next week. Just go ahead and plan on coming to the house, and we'll do an actual in-live person here and get started on Wildwood Flower, yeah. I had another one in my mind. Another good one that you might want to try to do, it's another good Carter family song, is Bury Me Beneath the Willow. Very good song. But we may do that one later after this one. So next week, just come on down at 1:30 your regular time if you can. And I will see you then, and we'll get started on some more awesome bluegrass tunes. And I'm excited to see your progress and how it's been working for you. Hopefully, I've not went over your head too much, but is hopefully at the same time, I've given you some things that you can actually use and utilize. And by next week, you'll have some of this under your belt. And also to give us a chance to catch up and see what exactly you are having issues with. I can watch your actual hand movements and playing, and kind of dissect it from there, and kind of help you tweak that and fine tune it a little bit. So I look forward to that. I'll see you next week, Levi. Please let me know if something does change, because I will be expecting you. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great week. Enjoy playing the bluegrass guitar.